Hi, I'm Peggy Farron. Thanks for joining us on the Understand Photography Show, where we talk about travel, nature, and fine art photography. My guest today is Andy Hornby from the UK, and we're going to talk about the glass ball, the lens sphere, whatever, the crystal ball photography, because he's really good. I found him on YouTube, and he's got some amazing videos that I'm going to put the links in the show notes. But first, I am going to do my little plug for our online class, which is called the 4 Weeks to Proficiency in Photography. A lot of the things that we talk about in this interview, we teach. I mean, we don't teach Lensball Photography in the 4 Weeks to Proficiency, but we talk about, shooting in the manual mode, lens compression, different apertures, all that kind of stuff. The 4 Weeks to Proficiency is a foundational class. You're going to get a great, solid foundation in photography with that 4-week class. It's an interactive class, so you have homework that you have to turn into your teacher, who's me. And I'm going to critique it a little bit. There's a little bit of, accountability. It's not just a class you're going to buy and then that's it and you're going to forget that you even bought it, because believe me, I've done that. So if I don't see you taking the class, I'm going to say, hey, what's going on, So you have a little bit of accountability, and I think as human beings, we need that. So we have a pretty good completion rate because of that. And with everything at Understand Photography, we really, really work hard to live up to our motto, which is we simplify the technical. Now, if anybody is coming to Southwest Florida, we are doing a lot more day trips and half-day tours and things like that this season. Obviously, the pandemic has changed the way that many of us do our businesses, so we have more short trips, day trips, and less long trips. So check out our schedule at understandphotography.com. Now, I found Andy Hornby on YouTube because I really wanted, what's the big deal with this lens ball? I bought one and I just never could figure out what to do with it to make it look good. But then some of the people that I follow on social media were using the lens ball and coming up with some really cool pictures. So I kind of started searching on YouTube and I found Andy, and oh my gosh, he's really a good instructor. And he's got some creative, cool ideas. So welcome, Andy.
Hi, how you doing, Peggy? Okay.
Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm from the UK. I've got a very English accent, and I am probably a millennial photographer. So I started doing photography in college. Back in the days of film, and then hated the darkroom, so I stopped. And then when digital photography came into its own, I picked up a camera again and started doing a bit of landscapes, portraits for family. Now I do weddings professionally, although at the moment it's a very open and closed. Well, if it's going to happen or not, I don't know, but wedding photography is kind of not happening at all in the UK at the moment. And a landscape photographer. Love that. I've been doing that for a few years now. Weddings I've been doing for about 12 years, give or take. And landscapes slightly bit longer.
Okay, all right. And you've got a good YouTube channel with a lot of teaching. That's how I found you, right?
Love YouTube. I like talking to people, and I found YouTube. Actually, I used my YouTube account for about 10 years, but I used it initially just to send videos to my wedding clients of their photo books, like a proof, because it means on a video they can't take the pictures and use them. I found that if I give them an actual proof of the photo book, they can potentially use them. So on a video they can see how it looks, and that's all I used the channel for. Then about 3 years ago I did a few Photoshop tutorials, that kind of stuff, and show people how to do various bits and pieces. And it kind of kicked off from there, and people kind of said, I like your work, let's see some more. So I got a few videos. I mean, we could talk about the glass ball stuff today, but a few other videos that have got quite a few views. I've got one video that has just over a million and something views, which is awesome.
Wow,
Um,
that is awesome. Yeah, well,
it's
you came
it's
you
doing really
came up
well.
when I did a search. You came up right up.
Brilliant.
So you've got a very popular channel, and you're a good teacher, and that's
Thank
why I
you.
liked your
I love.
videos. I watched three of them.
Wow, brilliant. I just love to. I love to talk to people, and weddings for me are about meeting people. And I I teach photography as well. I do a lot of workshops, and it's just about getting out there and meeting people and saying hello. It's hard at the moment, but under normal circumstances, it's it's nice to see people and talk about the craft that you like to do. And I just wish I could do it more at the
I
moment.
know
I'm just
right
stuck at
now, this
home.
stupid pandemic.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff, well, actually, almost all of this stuff that we're going to talk about today with the glass ball or sphere or
Yeah.
whatever people call this type of photography, we could do it.
Some people call it crystal ball photography. Crystal ball. I don't know. Yeah, that's that kind of
But we
stuff.
can do some. We can do that during the pandemic.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
all right. So let's get right into it. So how, first thing is I mean, are they all the same? How do you choose? How do you choose a
They're
glass?
not the same, but it depends on how much you want to spend. Funnily enough, there are companies out there that will tell you they have a specific photography glass ball, and you can spend $100 on a glass ball easily because they say it's designed specifically for photography. I bought mine off of Amazon. It was just a glass ball, and it cost me £15, which is about $20, give or take. And it does me fine. It's not the best quality inside. There is a little bit of I think it's where the glass kind of sat and cooled down. There's a little bit of a line inside, but in Lightroom or Photoshop, it takes 2 minutes just to get rid of that. It's not a problem
Yeah.
at all.
Okay.
Save yourself $85 and
Yeah,
just buy one of
that's a lot of
them.
money.
It can be, yeah, absolutely.
All right, so how do we get started? What do we look for in a scene? I tell you what I see over and over and over again is just a ball with the beach behind it.
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
there any way
Someone's
to
just
make it more interesting?
Yeah, absolutely. I see it all the time. It's one of the things that it's the first thing I see when where is your glass ball? You have to have a composition. Every photography genre has to start with your composition. What story you're trying to tell? And if you have a glass ball sat on the floor somewhere in the midst, you're not really using the glass ball to its potential. And when you've got your composition, you see what you want to the story you want to tell someone. Use that glass ball very close to the camera and shoot through the glass ball. It's like the eyes of the window to the soul. The glass ball is the window to your story with glass
Okay,
ball photography.
I like that. The window to your story. So you said to
Yeah.
put the glass ball close to your
Yeah, ideally,
camera
yeah. I
facing
mean,
the ball or
the
whatever.
walls can be broken quite a bit, but if the glass ball isn't close to the camera, you're not going to be able to focus on the image that's inside the glass ball, and that's what we're trying to get with this. The story has to come from the glass ball. If it's too far away, you're not going to see it.
Okay,
Uh,
so let's expand on that. So
mhm.
we're gonna put the ball somewhere. How do
Yeah,
you figure out the composition that you want? What are there any ideas to making a good, like the beach that I see all the time? Is
yeah.
there a way to make that look better or?
You kind of need something big. I know this sounds really, really strange, but if the glass ball is not going to magnify your picture, it's going to make it smaller. So
Okay.
if you've got something really small and there's not really anything big enough to show in the glass ball, it's going to look even further away than it already is. So you need to have a really good composition, some kind of structure, something that is going to be uh, inside the glass ball, but also in the whole composition behind the glass ball as well.
Okay.
So it kind of makes sense. The idea of landscape photography is to see everything and everything's in focus. The difference with this, it's more like a portrait shot, give or take, because the glass ball image has to be in focus and the background has to kind of be out of focus a little bit.
Okay.
And that's the difference.
Okay. So I'm at the beach, so I'm looking maybe at well, maybe I could put the pier up here.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay. So that's going to be my big thing.
it is.
And do I just put the ball on the sand, or do you use
If
a
you put the
stand?
ball, yeah, I mean, I have done that. If you put the ball on the sand, your camera's going to have to get down real close to the floor.
So do you lay on your
You,
belly when you're doing that kind of shot?
luckily, I've got a Sony, so I've got a flip out screen. I don't
Oh,
have to do that anymore. There were days when I had other systems where I didn't have a flip out screen and I would have to get right down, literally. I'm getting older now. I can't do that anymore. So Sony kind of helps me out a little bit. Uh,
okay.
but
So
yeah,
the
definitely.
first tip is to buy a camera with a flipped out screen.
And knee pads. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah, so yeah, you probably will have to get down real close to the glass ball, or you can elevate the glass ball somehow. I've used rocks, some kind of big rocks, and then put a glass ball on top. Sometimes when you buy these glass balls, you get a little, it's like a little stand that comes with it. It's only a quarter inch high, almost. Uh, you could use that. I tend not to because I like to have a more natural looking shot than something that looks like it's been placed unnaturally, if
Okay.
that kind of makes sense. Uh, but yeah, if it's on the floor, you're going to have to be down there as well. There's no two ways about it. There's no point in having the glass ball on the floor, cam on the tripod, which is, 15, 20, 40 inches high. Uh, you're not close enough to the glass ball.
Yeah. I wonder, could you put the glass ball on a tripod somehow?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Like get one of
absolutely.
those, I don't know, some kind of tray or something. I don't know
That'd
how you
work.
would attach it.
Yeah, I mean, I still need to, personally, I'd like to see a more natural kind of
Oh yeah,
grounding for the ball.
you're right.
But
It's not-
you can maybe put something on top of the board, maybe rocks, stones, that kind of stuff to hold it up, make it look more natural. If you're close to the glass ball, you wouldn't necessarily see the stand
That's a good idea. I
potentially.
was just thinking about some of my customers can't get down on the ground.
Right, absolutely. Again,
Tell
it's
everybody, you want to be a photographer, you better start doing your yoga.
limber up. Yeah, do your stretches. Yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah,
do. I lead this on Mondays during our busy season is the
yeah.
winter here in Florida. So on Mondays, I do the Old Naples photo tour, and we end
Right.
up at at the pier. And if you're watching
Okay.
the behind the scenes video,
Sure.
this is our pier. It's very
Yep.
pretty. Anyway, the last time I did it, which we've had a lot of rain, we got a hurricane again, but the last time I did it a couple weeks ago, there were surfers, and we don't usually have surfers on the west
Oh
coast of
wow.
Florida because it's the Gulf of Mexico. It's
Yeah.
very calm. But there were surfers out there, and I got a really cool shot because I just
Brilliant.
went down really low and got the guy carrying a surfboard silhouette. It was really pretty, and the guys with me were older men, and they were like,
Yeah.
they just can't get down that far. I'm like,
Do you know what? And I
doing
say
your
this,
yoga.
yeah, I say this to a lot of my workshop attendees that if you ever see me do landscape photography, my tripod is always just off the floor. And for a few reasons. One, it's more stable. And two, it's an angle that no one else is shooting.
Good
So
point.
for anything that you ever see, you're going to get a shot that's completely different to what anyone else gets. And I shoot things like the Spinnaker Tower in Portsmouth, gets shot by thousands of people every day. And I make it look different because I'm shooting at different angles.
That's awesome.
And
That's
on the flip side of that, there's a guy who comes to my workshops who has an 8 foot tripod. He's really tall as well, but he uses that at 8 foot because it's a different angle to what everyone else gets.
oh yeah.
No one's shooting up there and down there. So you're always going to get a completely different shot. And with some of the lenses we use, the compression difference can make a massive different shot compared to the person standing next to you.
Well, let's
Massive
talk
difference.
about that in our composition with the glass ball because
Yeah, sure.
that was one of the things you talked about in one of your videos that if you compress the background, it makes it look closer to the ball, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And bigger,
Yeah. So
right?
if we take the idea, if I can put it into perspective of it's like, again, I come back to it's like a portrait shot. So you want the background kind of out of focus. So sometimes with portrait photography, we use the 70 to 200 mil, the sort of longer lenses. And for landscapes, people forget to use that kind of focal length. And with glass ball photography, it makes it absolutely a world different to what anyone else is ever getting. So with the glass ball at a fairly close distance and the background out of focus, but looking a lot closer, huge difference to your neighbor taking the shot. And that's how I work my workshops. Is the idea of photography is to take a picture that potentially we're all taking the same picture, but make it your own, something different. And glass ball photography can do that, especially when you're using different focal lengths. Try one, try another, get closer, get further away from the glass ball, see what works for you. If it's a massive object in the background, the longer sort of focal length may not quite work because you may not get the background in as well.
Yeah.
So we kind of want the image inside the glass ball to be our primary image, but we want that to make sense with the whole image, the background as well. So if you lose the background, it kind of doesn't you've just got a glass ball with an image inside it, which can be nice. But if it's not, in keeping with its, full
So you want to look at the whole scene, the glass
absolutely,
wall,
yeah,
and then the soft unfocused
yeah.
background too. So if you are using a long lens and you can fit your whole background in there, so you're actually, if you have a 200 millimeter lens, you're actually going back a bit. 200 millimeters,
yeah, absolutely,
zooming in on that ball.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's about trying what works for you and your whatever camera system you're using. You could do this stuff with a phone. It's a lot of the phones nowadays you can zoom in a fair way. I know the new iPhone has got a really good camera on it. So you can try this out before you even get your DSLR out. You can go the glass ball in one hand and your phone in another hand and see what kind of composition works at what focal length, and then go and get your DSLR, come down. If you have to get on your knees, then is the only time you need to get down on your knees or whatever. You don't need to do that with a phone. You can hold your phone up. So technology moves on. 2 years ago when I'd done my videos, I wasn't using the phone for photography, but often not, I use it now to get a pre-shot, see what composition works, that kind of stuff.
Well, the nice thing about the phone is it does the processing right in the phone, like does the HDR and everything, and you're like, wow, I'm so good.
Yeah. My selfies, my face has never looked so smooth. It never used to do that with the old Nokias. But,
So now, what about now? So you're trying to knock the background out of focus. So are you using a wider aperture?
Yeah, so this is going to be the tricky part, finding the aperture that actually works for your one shot. There's no way of really teaching this. It's about getting your camera out, using different focal lengths and seeing what works. You don't want the background to be too out of focus like you would with a portrait shot potentially, because you want to have that separation. But you want the idea is to have the focus on the image inside the glass ball. That's where you want your actual focus on whatever that big structure is.
Let's say
inside the glass ball. Yeah, say it's the pier. Have the pier in focus in the glass ball, but also have the pier that's outside the glass ball in the background, not so out of focus that you don't know what it is, because then you've lost your story. You've got your glass ball. With portrait photography, you would have the background as out of focus as you possibly can, get a nice bokeh, all that kind of stuff. And that's the kind of idea with portrait photography. But, you still want to keep an element of landscape in your composition, your landscape settings. So you couldn't teach someone how, what f-stop you'd want to use. You maybe not want to.
Focal length too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So your background blur is controlled by three things. So your background blur is controlled by the focal length of your lens, the distance you are to your subject, and then your subject to the background, and then I've lost it now. I've lost the focal length, distance to subject, and the your f-stop. So between those three things, your aperture, you'd have to work out what kind of works best for you. The good thing about digital photography is you can take a picture. If it doesn't look right, you can re-expose, change your aperture, and then change your other settings, and you'd be spot on. But
I love it.
The basic idea is to have the background out of focus, but not so much that you don't know what it is.
Okay. So you do have to play around with it until you see what.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So what about lighting? I mean, do you use special light? I mean, I know, and we're going to talk about some of your creative stuff, but
okay.
If we're still on the pier, are you using any extra lighting, or how does that work?
It's hard to say because obviously with landscape shots, it's hard to light appear. Absolutely. I tend to do a lot of that kind of intricate, relighting stuff after the fact. So post-processing, Lightroom, potentially Photoshop. I have used lights to light my glass ball because sometimes you might want to darken the background almost unnaturally. If it's a really bright day, it's again, it comes down to a similar sort of idea for portrait photography. If you've got the sun behind your subject, it's going to be too light. We need to expose for the lightest part of our image. We can bring the sky's exposure down by lighting your subject. In this case, it's a glass ball.
Do you use like a continuous light, like maybe your iPhone flashlight or something? Would that work?
Exactly. Depending on the current light. So if it's a really bright day, you'd need something a little bit stronger. But if the sun's coming down, I've used fairy lights to light my hand once. I held in fact, I'd done that at the end of one of my videos. I held the glass ball in my hand, put fairy lights around my hand a few times, and shot the Spinnaker Tower. And the Spinnaker Tower, if anyone knows from the UK, is the sort of Dubai's equivalent, or the English equivalent of Dubai's big tower, sail tower. It's a bit smaller. It's a little bit smaller, but it is still quite big. And have that in the background, but obviously I darkened the background down. I did a little bit of post-processing, and yeah, you can light the glass ball fairly easily with anything really. Like I say, a phone light would work.
Okay, that sounds
creative.
That sounds so cool. So what are some? Let's go into just some cool creative things that you have, because that was the first video I watched of yours. Was it Seven Creative?
Seven Creative, yes. Yeah, I do like that video.
It was really a great video, and you had some great ideas. So tell me some of your creative, cool ideas.
Well, the first one obviously is find something really big, really, really big, because obviously inside the glass ball it's going to look a lot smaller anyway. And in that video, particularly, I have the Spinnaker Tower. That's the biggest structure we have, pretty much on the south coast of England, to be fair. And I held the glass ball up in my hand, and with my other hand, handheld, took a picture. And it came out okay, but you could use a tripod and find something absolutely massive. It's just about finding a different angle on something. I generally find my ideas from Instagram, and it's like any type of photography that I do. I generally find I'm not a very it's what I say to a lot of my attendees. Teaching someone to find a composition or be a compositional photographer is very difficult. So some people have an eye for composition. Unfortunately, I don't. I've never really had that kind of level of artistic. When I go out, I don't see things. I have a lot of local photographers who can do that, but I can't do that. So I use Instagram a lot to find inspiration. And when I do, I then decide on how I can take that picture and make it my own. So I'm not there to copy what other people have done. I'm there to take that photography and really build on it and make it my own personal project. Almost is what I use it for. So yeah,
that's a good idea. I mean, especially if you like for us when we're talking about the finding something big. If I want to do something at the beach, the only big thing I have is the pier.
Right.
What if I go on Instagram and somebody backed up and got a palm tree?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have thought of that because we don't have palm trees right on the beach. You have to kind of go off the beach, but there are some places where you could go off the beach and probably find that.
I see it so much in the UK with local photographers to me, and I'll go and do a picture, and then a few weeks later, someone will do a similar image, get it really, in my eyes, better, and then say I was their inspiration. And thanks, but your image is much better than mine. But it's kind of how it works. It's how life works, isn't it? We stand on the shoulders of our ancestors and move society and everything forward. And it's the same with photography. Everyone's taking the pictures of the same things. And we all have a slightly different creative eye, potentially.
So give us some more ideas. We're looking for creativity here.
The other thing would be find something really small. So this is number 2 in my video. Funnily enough, I then take a book. I can't remember what book it was. It has some really funny words in it, and I shot. And if you roll the lens ball over the words, they actually magnify, because if the lens ball is really close to something, and that will come on to safety a bit later, because if you're in direct sunlight, you've got to be careful. So if you're over the book and you roll the ball, the actual words become magnified because it's so close to the ball. And the book did have some funny words in it. I didn't take a picture of all the funny words, but I managed to get a good picture shooting straight down onto the book. You'd need a lot of light for this. So I've got external lights. I've got a couple of LED lights that I shone straight onto the book.
But people could even use like desk lamps.
Absolutely. And I get creative. Lighting for me is coming from anywhere. So even now I'm lighting myself by different lamps and stuff all around me and stuff like that. So I tend to get really creative. I think lighting is one of the main things for any kind of photography, really, where your light's coming from. And if you can justify using a lamp, absolutely. You know, I've used little torches when I do wedding photography and I do my ring shots. I've got all these big lights shining down on, but essentially I've got two really strong torches from above. My assistant holds above that then lights from above because of really direct light, and it really adds to the different different aspect of the lighting.
And for us Americans, those are flashlights.
Flashlights. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Flashlights.
That's okay. So anything that would that you could actually put the ball on would magnify.
Absolutely.
So
yep.
like patterns.
Oh yes, yeah.
Something like that. That would be cool.
If you go around your house, there are tons and tons of kitchen utensils. I use colanders. I use I don't know if you have them in the US, but we have a cheese grater.
Yeah,
is a thing you stand. Yeah, you probably got slightly different variants. Well, we've got like a big square thing that you.
No, they're exactly the same because I watched your video. So
fantastic.
And what you did, explain what you did in the video with these things, because
effectively, I'm shining light from all over the place into this thing, and I've got the glass ball at the big end, if you like, and then shoot through the glass ball, and you have this massive kind of kaleidoscope look through the Lensball. It looks amazing. It's incredible. And they're just two things I used out of the kitchen. I mean, you could go around the house and find tons of stuff. If you can shine light through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to explain a little bit more what you did.
Yeah, go for it.
Like it was a metal colander, and you put the lights inside you put the light down underneath on the table, and then the colander on top of the light, so the light was shining through the colander.
Absolutely.
And you put the ball on top of that.
That wasn't easy.
And yeah, because you'd think it would roll off.
Yeah, it did a lot.
But then you shot through the ball, so you got
straight
all
down.
those, like the light coming through those little holes in the colander.
Yeah,
and then you did
really
something similar with the cheese grater.
Yeah,
really cool shots.
That was the cheese grater was more horizontal. I couldn't get the sort of vertical look with that one. It wouldn't work. But yeah, absolutely. It's about shining the light through from the other side. You know, getting a nice look, and the way the glass ball and the spherical look of the glass ball kind of, you get that kaleidoscope effect. It really does push all the shapes everywhere. You get all kinds of different shapes.
And the other thing you did is you used colored lights. So if someone didn't have colored lights, they could just put a piece of cellophane over a light, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. The colored lights, that I bought them off of eBay, funny enough, and they're really cheap. They've got elastic around them. They're tiny little lights, really tiny. They're less than like an inch long. And the elastic I put them with the elastic around 2 chopsticks. So I had 4 of these lights, different lights.
Okay, so you have a chopstick.
Yeah.
And you attach 4 different color lights.
4 different colored lights.
To the chop.
Yeah, so chopsticks. One above the other, all the way up.
Okay, go ahead.
Or you could put more on. If you could fit more on, you could put more on. Turn the lights off, set a 5-second timer, and then with a mirror underneath the glass ball, I've done a spiraling effect around the glass ball. It's hard to explain that to somebody who can't see what I'm doing.
I think you're doing a good job. So you put the mirror down first. You put the ball on top of the mirror.
On top of that, yeah.
And then your hand is like above the
glass ball.
And you're just circling it with
circling around. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And with a 5-second timer, you're gonna get light trails, and those light trails with the different colors looks incredible, to be fair. The other way to do it is from behind the glass ball, is just do a swooping effect almost across the back of the mirror. And that will get you sort of lines at the back. You could do a 30-second long exposure of that and do both. So you could do one spiral take the lights away, then put them down at the back and do a shot across the back. And you just get really creative and artistic, and you can just go absolutely nuts.
I love it. What a
Light
great,
trails.
I mean, how cool is that? Now, do you focus manually? So you put your camera on a tripod, and do you focus manually?
Camera tripod. Yes, I tend to use manual settings. It make things a lot easier using manual settings. As long as you've got a nice 5-second timer, not timer, 5-second exposure with a relatively open aperture. So you want something maybe around a 5.6, something that's going to keep everything sharp.
Okay.
But still have a little bit of almost, because when you circle the lights around the back and the front, they'll be slightly blurry, and that kind of adds to the effect. You get a really nice blurred effect.
Cool.
Kind of works really well. And then your ISO would be whatever you need it to be to get a decent exposure. Generally, it's going to be somewhere, if you're indoors, somewhere around 500, something like that. Should work.
Okay. So,
Good fun.
let's go back outside, because one of the things I just thought, this is so simple. I feel like an idiot. I never thought of this.
I know what you're going to say.
You pour the water. You're looking for a reflection. You brought your own little bottle of water.
So the funny thing about that story is that when I did that video, it actually been pouring down with rain. That the ground was pretty much soaked anyway. But I've done that workshop so often that I know to always have a bottle of water with me, because I know that I'm going to do that workshop on a day when it's been blistering hot. There's no puddles anywhere. You can't get a reflection from anything. Yet a half-litre bottle of water will be enough to get a decent reflection. You just pour it out in front of the glass ball and maybe around the base, and you're going to get a nice reflection. If your camera's low enough, obviously, and you've got a nice big structure behind it, you're going to get a reflection of the structure. Potentially, if you've got the sun behind it as well, that'll look pretty cool. Yeah, you can get some, again, really creative. And it's something people never think of. You know, reflections are massive in landscape photography. Introduce them into something like glass ball. You've got the glass ball reflection as well. So you've got the main glass ball, the reflection of the glass ball, and the reflection of the whole composition in the reflection and everything else. It can look, you can make that look incredible, really, honestly.
Okay, so let's slow down, because I did see your videos. But because this is a podcast, so
yeah,
you put the ball down on the ground with the big thing behind it, and you get your composition.
Absolutely.
And then you pour water in front of it.
Yeah, between the glass ball and the camera.
In front of yes, thank you.
Yeah.
In front of the glass ball. So then you get the reflection in the front.
Yeah.
You still
And
have the full background.
the good thing is,
go ahead.
sorry, the fun thing is that the normal glass ball refracted image is upside down, but the reflected image is the right way up. So you get this kind of very weird look effect, and you can play around. And I think that's another one we're going to talk about in a minute, is spinning the picture 180. And if you've got a reflected picture, it kind of makes a very warped, almost freaky looking image, because you're like, you second guess what's right. Is that upside down? Is that right? Very, very good bit of photography there.
That is really cool. You know, you brought up something that I wanted to tell, my little story, because I bought a glass ball and I never use it, because I'm like, what do I do with this thing, you know? But one of the things, we have this really cool structure down in the 10,000 Islands, which is close to here in the Everglades. And this guy in the 80s, he went to live on an island off grid, and he built this house out of cement, but it was like domes.
Okay.
And it was really cool. It had six domes, but then he couldn't, islands get washed away, right? So he did all this work, but then he couldn't get a permit for a what do you call it that stops the erosion? I can't think of a seawall.
Oh, like a seawall, yeah, like
sea
sea defenses.
seawall, so he abandoned it.
Oh, wow.
So that was, he built that in 1980 something, right? It's 2020. So that slowly got, the island slowly left the house.
Ouch.
So you have to take a boat, but we go to photograph the domes, which are just in the middle of in the Gulf of Mexico now, which there are only 4 now because Hurricane Irma took 2 of them down.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it's so cool. So I brought the little glass ball, and I thought, okay, let's see what we can do with this. So I'm like, and of course, I'm leading a photo tour, right? So I have to act like a big shot. So I'm like, okay, you guys, I'm gonna hold this up, and you go first. You take a picture. Oh my God, my hands almost burnt off. You can't hold a glass sphere in the sun, which you
I've,
you
I've
touched.
made the same mistake. There's a very small pier in Southsea called Victoria Pier, and it's not very long at all, but it's really really nice to take a picture of, especially at sunset. And that's where I start my glass ball workshop because it's so nice. And where I start, there's a wooden sort of like barrier to stop you from falling into the water. There's like a wooden barrier, and on top of that is a little hole. You actually see that in the video. You see me put the glass ball in the little hole, just keeps it steady. And one day I'm doing my workshop and I'm like, I'm sniffing, I'm smelling burning, and I'm wondering why. It's because the sun's out, and because the glass ball is right on this wood, it's burning the wood.
Oh my
And
God.
I didn't even strike me that was ever going to happen. It's never happened before. I've done this workshop like previous to that point, maybe 4 or 5 times. It's never, because it's always been cloudy, so there's never been. And yeah, I'm burning this wood that's been there for a gazillion years because it was built back in the God knows where. And I was like, oh no, no, quick, get off, get off. But yeah, it will magnify. It's like almost like at that close range. It's like a magnifying glass. Like I said, when you roll the lens ball over the book, it will magnify the words. It's going to do this. It's going to use that like magnification, with the sun and stuff like that. It will burn. If it's in your hand, it will burn your hand. God, I
Oh,
hope it
tell
didn't burn
me.
you too much.
I know from experience.
Wow.
So I think one person got a shot, and then I
Oh
was like, I'm
no.
not doing this anymore.
Yeah, put it away. Put
Rested
the
on a
lens ball away.
boat.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think
absolutely.
I did get one shot, I think myself too, but
Oh, brilliant.
I gotta.
The only other bit of safety advice I have with that is if you're using this thing on top of something, is watch it doesn't fall off. You know,
Yeah, because they're heavy.
they're heavy. I mean, I've got one of the bigger ones. I've got the I think it's 10 centimeters across, and it's not big, but it's big enough. And that's a solid bit of glass. If that hits someone,
Oh no,
certainly, if it,
yeah.
massive, massive, be safe. Sorry.
I have a story to tell about that because when I started off in portrait photography, I went to this workshop and she said, you give the baby something really cute to hold. And she had this oversized marble that she got on eBay or someplace. So I went and I found one and it was about the size of one of those spheres, right? I give it to this 2-year old, right? Because they're always wanting to hold. Maybe he wasn't two. I don't know how old he was, but he was a big baby, like a toddler type of baby.
Yeah.
He threw that thing at me, and it
Oh my
bruised
God,
me
really?
like you wouldn't believe. That
Oh
little.
no, yeah, I can imagine.
So yeah, so be
Oh
careful with
God.
those
Yeah,
things.
be very careful.
So from then on, I found a big shell because I'm
Nice and light.
the beach with like soft edges that won't
That's
hurt so bad if somebody throws it at me.
brilliant. Oh,
You
the stories that we photographers have, especially from weddings, I can tell you, massive.
For me, it's 3-year-olds because I've done family
The
portraits
family
for a
stuff.
long time, and the 3-year-olds, man, they love to throw sand at you. And when you're, got your $5,000
Yeah.
camera, you really don't want a sand all over
No,
it.
no. Oh,
All
dear.
right, so let's see what else. What else can we for creativity? Oh, you had one more thing that you did in that video, split tone. What does that mean?
Yeah, so it works really well if you have a structure that's vertical. It could be horizontal. You can angle the lens ball. It's going to be hard to explain. Angle lens ball so that the almost the line of the structure goes in line with the middle of the glass ball, and you get, because it's inverted, you get that inverted effect where the lighter, whatever the background is going to be on the other side in front of where the structure is on this side. Does that kind of make sense? It's almost like a two-tone like checkers board.
So
So
you're just basically blocking half of the.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely,
But
yeah,
if you
block
could,
half it.
there's a lot you could do with that. I mean, if you
Tons.
blocked it with something like maybe a pier that was all like grainy or something, that would be a lot of texture. That would be
Yeah, texture's really good with that. Really, really good. Comes out really nicely in the glass ball.
Or you could
You
even
find a lot of commercial photographers use glass balls in this way to showcase things like signage. So you have the sign in one half and obviously the outside, and then a building in the other half, and that kind of stuff. So
ah,
yeah, commercial photography massive with this kind of stuff. Having that, it gives it that kind of commercial kind of look, almost like a branding almost look, logo almost. It's
that
quite
is
fun.
so, yeah, that's a cool idea too. Like
Massive.
if you come across some cool sign,
Yeah,
like if you're
absolutely.
doing street photography somewhere, and
Massive. Huge.
or even like
Yeah.
landscape photography, like if you see a, like, I don't know, I've never been anywhere, I've never seen a moose, but if I saw a moose crossing sign, that would be really interesting to me because I've never even seen a moose. I don't even know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you had like a pretty mountain behind it, that'd be cool,
Sounds
right?
awesome. Yeah, absolutely. That sounds amazing. Yeah.
What could you do in the street? No parking and then have one car. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just
No parking.
trying
There's
to think
there's
of.
quite a few COVID signs around at the moment. You might really utilize that
Boy,
potentially.
that's,
That might be one.
I know the first time when COVID first happened and they shut off all my walking trails, which I didn't
Really?
understand that because
No.
they're out in nature and there's nobody there, but they shut them off and I was like so fascinated taking signs for the future, but now
Yeah.
you've seen enough of them.
Yeah. Yeah, we had the same over here. So, but one of the last videos I did just before the first sort of lockdown in the UK, it was quite a somber sort of video. And actually, because it had the word COVID in it at the time, YouTube actually struck it. I couldn't make any revenue on that video at all because I had the word COVID. They changed their minds, and the algorithm all got changed a bit later on down the line.
Oh,
But
wow.
then every video after that is kind of from indoors. It's kind of because I couldn't get out anywhere. Just weren't allowed even for exercise in the UK. It had to be specific to certain areas. It was really weird, really strange.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
weird when they blocked off our beach. They put
mm,
these, I don't know what they're
yeah.
called. They're like you see them around parades sometimes when you don't want somebody to go by these big metal
Right.
things, and then they
Yeah.
had all this tape so that you couldn't even cut around them.
Yeah.
And it was hard because we are beach people. We live near the beach because we're beach people.
Yeah.
And then they opened up our beach, and we're 2 hours away from Miami on the West Coast,
Right.
and they had to close it the same day because everybody from Miami came over because
Oh no.
we're all like, we need the
Oh,
beach. Anyway,
yeah.
all right. So, oh, I know another thing that you did in your video that was so cool was with the running water.
Yes. Oh, we've got a fountain. Yeah, we've got kind of like an inverted fountain. It shoots jets up. They've actually again, that's another thing that's been closed down. They've actually closed off. But I did a bit of slow-mo video using the glass ball through the running water. And if you found like a faucet or something like that and had the same thing, the water bouncing over and around the ball, getting a picture of that actually can look quite incredible. You need to get a pretty fast shutter speed for that. So you have to mess around with certain bits and pieces. But if you can get a background composition as well, if you can find some kind of like falling water, maybe a waterfall somewhere, maybe, have a really nice landscape shot, the water flowing over and around the glass ball makes for such a nice cascading effect on the
And
glass ball. It's
what it made me
amazing.
think of is, and I don't know if I could pull this off or not, but I mean, mostly we have on the Gulf of Mexico, it's very calm. But if
Mm.
it's really windy, like that one day where there were surfers,
Yeah,
we have waves coming up. I thought
waves.
if you put that at the edge of the beach, and of course I'd have to lay on my belly because I don't have the flip screen.
Yeah, yeah.
But maybe you could get a cool because it was
It
it
probably
was
would work.
it was the
You'd get
strength
wet.
of the water that made it
Yeah.
so cool. That's the
Yes.
right word.
Yeah. I mean, these were water jets hitting it from underneath. So that may be the difference. If the waves crashing over, maybe it's going to look slightly different. But I had the water actually coming up, so the jets were shooting out the floor, and the ball was kind of the water was flowing around, coming up. You probably don't even realize that in the picture, in the image that I took. Uh, but if it was going the other way, you could kind of get the same
No,
effect
and I
coming
don't know
down.
if you guys have these in the UK, but almost, and I'm so mad because they came into fashion after my son was too old.
Right.
But almost all of our parks have those little
Yes.
miniature.
Yeah.
Do you have those too?
Well, this is kind it's funny because that fountain is actually in the front of a very old castle on Southsea seafront, but it's designed to be a kid's play pool.
Okay.
So when they first opened it up, that's where everyone went. All the kids are in running through it and running out of it. So it is a kind of splash pool almost. I don't know whether you call it splash pool in the US, but yeah, we have splash pools that have those jets that shoot out. So if you could find one of them in the US somewhere, you got it made
Yeah,
with the
well,
glass ball.
they're in. I could just think here in little Naples, Florida, we've got just like Vineyards Park has one. They're
Good
just
for you.
they're just little playgrounds.
Brilliant.
They're not like big places like yours,
Yeah.
in your video, but they do have those, and
If you can find a nice backdrop to that,
they're very colorful. So I would
Yeah.
think you would at a playground. They got all the colorful things. I
Yeah,
bet you could
absolutely.
find something cool.
Sounds
So,
awesome. Yeah.
All right. Is there anything? What else creative are we? What are we forgetting? I'm looking at my notes. You talked about
Flipping the
crop.
image is often a good idea. Flip the image
Oh,
180.
oh yeah, because you talked about flipping it and then cropping in real tight.
Yeah. So if you flip and crop in and you still have a teeny bit of the background, so you still get a sort of inkling of what the composition is. But if you zoom in and flip it, you've now got the image inside the glass ball is now the right way up
Okay.
because it was inverted initially.
Is it
So
going to look like a fisheye or?
it now that depends.
Okay.
Now that depends on your angle to the ball. So if the glass ball is higher or lower than your camera in terms of the elevation.
Okay.
So if your camera's too high and the glass ball is too low and you take a picture, you're going to get a kind of wonky horizon. So everything's going to kind of have that fisheye kind of look. Again, similarly, if the glass ball is too high, you'll get a horizon that is wonky as well. If you are level, almost directly level to the horizon and the glass ball, the horizon will be straight.
Okay, so you have to, if you don't have that flip screen, you got to lay down on your belly.
Yeah. You'll see in my video that I did back in those days, I've actually got my camera inverted upside down right on the sand. So the top of my camera, and at the time it was the A7R2, I think it was. I didn't ruin it, but the Sony's notorious. The hot shoe is live almost. It's got electrics running through it, and you can really ruin that if you get it wet. And I'm always losing the little things that you plonk in there. I can't remember what you call them. They slot into the hot. Yeah.
Yeah, I lose those too.
I lose them all the time. And where that's almost sat on the sand, that's getting sand in it, is I'm that low to the ground to get my horizon straight.
So you flipped your camera upside down.
Yeah, it was on the tripod, but yeah, it was upside down on the tripod.
Oh, I was thinking you were just laying it on the ground. I was thinking,
Oh,
what?
no, I wouldn't do that. I still need a bit of stability. I'm not that stable. I wish I was. I wish I had steady hands. I don't.
If you did want to flip it on the ground, bring a piece of plastic or something so you wouldn't.
Yeah, that would be a really good idea if I thought about it. Hindsight. Yeah, if I thought about it at the time, I would have done. But
All
yeah,
right, so let's summarize with things that people do wrong.
okay. So the things that people do wrong. That's I think the main thing for me is I see images where a lens ball is just plonked in the middle of a field or whatever composition you have, but you've got someone on a tripod up here somewhere and a glass ball down there somewhere in the foreground, and it's just a glass ball in a landscape shot.
So you're just shooting down at it. So you
It's not even really a glass ball
horizon
shot.
first.
Yeah,
Of all.
that's
Then
my
you're not softening the background.
no. You're not really doing anything other than shooting a landscape with a glass ball in it, and that's kind of. I think that's the main one. I see it all the time. You see the hashtags go up, glass ball photography, and you look at it and you think, well, actually, no, it's a landscape shot. Sometimes a very nice landscape shot. You might have a very nice composition. You just happen to have a glass ball somewhere in the foreground. It doesn't really add or subtract to the image at all, really. I think that's the main one for me.
So the key there is you really need to be either you're physically close if you have a short
Yeah.
lens, but if you have
Or
a
a
long
long
lens,
lens.
you're
It
zooming
needs
in.
to be good in your composition, a good size in your composition.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. What
I
else?
think another one is what to focus on. So you either have I see images where everything's in focus. So the picture and the glass ball's in focus, which is nice because that's what we're after. But also the entire composition is in focus. So the background is in focus too. And where that's kind of nice for landscape photography, actually for glass ball photography, you kind of want a little bit of separation. So that's another mistake people make is have an f-stop of maybe f11 or even a smaller aperture than that, maybe up to f22, but whatever people do, everything is in focus at that point. Where in fact with glass ball photography, you have to kind of think of it almost like a portrait shot where you want the glass ball separate from the background, a little bit of blurriness, but enough, not too much that we don't know what it is. I think that's the main point of that.
I like it. One of my favorite words as a photography instructor is separation.
Separation, yeah, absolutely.
You just hit my favorite word.
Brilliant. Yeah, definitely.
All right, keep going. You're on a roll.
So what else have we got then? I can't think what else did I have in the video?
Okay, angle of the camera to the ball.
Yeah, so that was what we were just talking about. So that's looking either up or down at the lens ball. Sometimes you don't have a choice and you have to kind of elevate your camera either above or below the lens ball, but you need to be somewhere near the same level. Otherwise, you're going to either have a lot of ground in the glass ball or a lot of sky in the glass ball. And depending on what your subject is, if it's maybe a structure that's protruding very high into the air, that works because you need more of the sky in the glass ball because that structure is taking up. If it's a pier, yeah, but if it's your pier like the one you've got in your awesome picture behind you, you'd kind of need the horizon to be straight and to be able to see it. Otherwise, you've just got a really wonky horizon, either all the ground or all of the air, and you don't really get to see the pier because the way that's been distorted, it's just going to almost blur into the ground. You won't see it. So for glass ball shot with a pier, something that's flat to the horizon almost, you're going to need to be on the same level as the glass ball. So the horizon is straight.
Okay.
And that's the main one.
And then the fourth thing that I have in my notes is you talked about the background, which you're kind of almost.
Yeah. So again, it's talking about composition. And if you have an image of the glass ball on the ground somewhere in front of you, you've got a nice landscape shot, a very nice composition. But similarly, on the sort of flip side of that is if you're really close to your glass ball and too close to your glass ball and you don't see the background, you kind of just have a picture of the glass ball. And that may work. Some of these rules are meant to be broken, but that may work, especially if you flip it or invert it 180 degrees. That's kind of nice because you've got a nice right side up image and it kind of works. But often or not, you kind of need just enough of the background to tell the story. And that's what we do in photography, don't we? We tell a story with images. If you haven't told that story to the next person who's going to come and look at your picture, it kind of hasn't worked or hasn't worked.
Okay.
So, background.
All right. So I'm gonna and interrupt me because I'm gonna try to summarize. So
no, go ahead.
Like saying something wrong, but the most important thing obviously is the composition.
Yeah.
You want
as is with any photography.
So it's
absolutely composition.
It's a good idea, especially if you're doing landscapes, to find something big, but then you are going to be really focused in on the ball itself, but your background has to be relevant, tell the story, and be a little bit out of focus.
Yeah, sure.
So you're going to have play around with your aperture until you find the right aperture, because depending on the focal length of your lens, you might need f8, you might need f2.8, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Spot on.
But another thing about the focal length of your lens that you talked about was if you have a long lens, you can compress the background and make everything look a little closer and a little smaller.
Isn't photography really difficult?
I love photography.
It's brilliant. It really is brilliant. There's so much to it, but you're absolutely right in all points there. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And then
it's hard to teach that unless you're there and you're with the person with the lens they're using and the setup they've got. But yeah, absolutely.
And then at the home stuff though, that's just sheer
That's
fun.
play.
And I
That is
did, I
pure
forgot
play.
'cause when you were talking about those finger lights, I forgot, I think that's the name of them. I
Yeah.
actually went on eBay and looked them up here in the US and they're $10.
Yeah, absolutely. You get a bag
They're
of 50
cheap
or
for,
so. Yeah.
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 So,
I've still got loads. I have photographers messaging me all the time. Have you got any I can have? And I just come around and grab some. I've got 100. Just don't. I got a
oh, so
bag of
you bought like them in bulk?
yeah, I bought 100. It's the only ones I couldn't buy smaller than that, than like a bag of 100. And so I just got them and thought I only use four.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. They're really cheap on eBay. It's where exactly where I got them from. And, getting creative with glass ball photography, it's just about having fun. See what works. That's why we've got digital photography nowadays. We can just keep shooting until we kind of get what we like or what we see. It's all
Well, I
about having
can't
fun.
wait to see what you come up with now that the UK's on lockdown again. Let's see what cool video comes up next for Andy Hornby.
I'm getting out weekly. I'm trying to get out weekly at the moment. So Fridays, tomorrow is my photography day. I'll get out and have another video up by the weekend, hopefully.
That's awesome. And all right, tell us where our audience can find you and tell us a little bit. Now, you do workshops. How do you
I
have a workshop?
do.
Go ahead, tell us.
So, I mean, you can Google Andy Hornby photography. Most of my social media is Andy Hornby photos. So Instagram, Andy Hornby photos, YouTube, Andy Hornby photos, Facebook the same, Andy Hornby photos. My workshops is slightly different. That's a group on Facebook. So that's Andy Hornby workshops. Keep it simple. Just search Andy Hornby. There is a US Andy Hornby. I'm not him. He's a bodybuilder.
You're
That's
not
not
a
me.
bodybuilder.
uh, but certainly, yeah, my social media is based around my name, so you can certainly find me just by Google.
And it's Hornby, no S, because I was
No S.
Hornsby for some reason. I wanted to put an S in there.
Yeah, I think that's quite. There's Hornsby somewhere. I can't think what it is. Hornby in the UK. It comes from a family who made train sets. Believe it or not. So in my youth, I was called Choo Choo quite a bit. But, that doesn't do it. They stopped doing that years ago, so I don't get that anymore.
Well, I'm also going to put all your links in the show notes at understandphotography.com.
Oh, Peggy, you're a
And I
star.
will put the links to your actual glass ball videos
Fantastic,
in the
brilliant.
show
Oh, that'd
notes
be
as
great.
well.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll see an online class from you. Ooh, that was
Hopefully,
pressure.
yeah. I might have to do that. I do online classes for other stuff. I've never done one for glass balls. So maybe I should look into doing that.
I think you should. I think you're
Oh,
really good. Well,
awesome.
thank you so much for being on the Understand Photography
It's
show.
been an absolute pleasure. You're an absolute star. Thank you, Peggy.
Well, thank you, Andy, so much. I hope our audience got a lot out of that interview. And please, you got to go watch his videos, especially that 7 creative, whatever it is. I'm going to put a link in the show notes at understandphotography.com. Don't forget, while you're at understandphotography.com, click on right when you get to the website, it says click here for freebies. Choose something that we're giving away for free and you'll be on our mailing list. We send out a newsletter once a month and it's got photography tips and what's going on with that Understand Photography. It's a good newsletter. If you don't like it, you can always unsubscribe. I'm Peggy Farron. Thanks so much for joining us on the Understand Photography show. We'll see you on the next episode.
Get up!